Ah, welcome back from the break. I hope the 10 minutes give you time to go over what we discussed. Now, we are moving on to the last theory that we are studying in this course, and that is ontological pluralism. Now, this could be defined as the doctrine that there are different ways or modes of being. There are different ways or modes of being. In the contemporary guise, it is the doctrine that a logically perspicacious description of reality will use multiple quantifiers which cannot be thought of as ranging over a single domain. Then pluralism on its own could probably shed more light into what this theory implies. Now, on its own, pluralism means multiplicity. That there is no one single logic that correctly defines a given phenomenon. That there are more than one correct logic. Particularly when we look at what nature gives us. Yeah, that pluralism actually gives us an explanation of multiplicity, even as nature presents to us. What may look good to Lillian may not certainly be good to somebody else. Yeah. Lillian may derive a lot of meaning in this particular course that we refer to as postmodern theories of literature, whereas somebody else thinks this particular course is enigmatic, it is a puzzle. They don't seem to understand it. Now, ontological pluralism as a theory is preoccupied with religious discourses, for instance. It is preoccupied with narratives and models of writers. Yeah. We sample Violet Blawayo's unique new names and we look at her choice of names for her characters and we wonder, these names present to us a lot of strangeness. We look at Sukizo Wana's mode of naming and again we raise eyebrows over her choice of the names of her characters in that particular story. We look at Tom Okara's The Exodus, for instance, and then we look at the Bible and we realize that the term Exodus may mean coming out. What did Tom Okara intend to tell his audience by giving his story that kind of a strange title? And how about Sukizo Wana's The Madams? What does the Madams mean? What does it connote, Madame? The Madams. It's like it's known, something known. Having read this book, we know that the Madams refer to the mistresses that employ house girls. So house girls look up to their Madams. They look up to their mistresses. But you wonder what triggered, the choice of this kind of a strange title in Sukizo Wana's mind. And if we look at happenings ordinarily in the society, or we look at happenings like in the Bible, we are left asking a lot of questions, like the Savior of the world. Why did the Savior of the world have to be born in a manger? Could the Savior of the world be born in a better place? Yeah. And then if we look at the Islamic Quran and we look at the Christian Bible, for instance, you see a lot of similarity. And you say, but why do these people keep disagreeing when they're actually worshipping the same thing? And their doctrines are more or less the same. The difference is only in names. Yeah. So pluralism, there's a lot of multiplicity. Out of a simple happening, people can deduce millions of conclusions that some contrast one another, others are similar. Now, ontological pluralism gives a second development in espousing the post-modernist fiction because of the questions it raises. In intermixing diverse communities, symbols and images in an advanced industrial, cultural turnover. Like we look at Googies, our literature discussion is incomplete without incorporating Googie. We look at how Googie uses the Adiku Myth, and it is so relevantly used. We admire the way he has used it. It's admirable in his kind of work. And then in the contemporary world, people live not only among cultures, that belong to them. Other cultures have come in and they may leave what is theirs for what is somebody else's. And that somebody else is leaving what is theirs and coming into that other one that is foreign. It is a moment of cultural amalgamation. Like you look at Kenya, for instance, and you realize that the Europeans who come over admire our mode of dressing. They want to buy our African outfits. Yet, the Africans back in Africa look up to Europe for that artistic modernization. You look at one buying jeans and they want to tear it so that it looks like, that other one worn elsewhere. So that amalgamation of cultures coming together and flooding us all of a sudden give us a kind of experience that writers go through. In a short space of a literary work, they are confronted with several cultures that they want to write about. They are confronted with several thematic concerns that they want to compress into their novels and make meaning out of what, they are gathering. So in other words, that writer is confronted with what may be existing in a village, but it is not an ordinary village as we know the term. We are talking of the global village. But if this is happening in Kenya this way, how is it happening elsewhere? How is it happening in Europe? How is it happening in America? So that ontological playfulness of postmodernist fiction is what gives us the multiplicity of literary worlds. A particular literary world is full of multiplicities. We take the example of Margaret Ogola's The River and the Source, once again, a text that we are all very familiar with. And in that particular text, is discussed the African culture, particularly the Luo community, but it's also discussed the Kamba culture, because one of the characters, that is Wandia, comes from that particular culture. We have not yet exhausted Wandia's cultural background, and we are confronted with Becky. Becky is marrying a white man, and at some point they disagree because they have divergent views, and Becky goes her way. Now, before we have internalized that breakup, Becky is confronted with this disease that we call AIDS, and she dies. Margaret Ogola's literary pen takes us through this strange ailment, and we are not done with mourning Becky, when other strange presentations come up. But what are these strange presentations? So a literary text is giving us multiplicity of ideas, and that is what we refer to as ontological pluralism. We are not yet done exploring one thematic concern when the writer confronts us with another. And as we are trying to internalize this particular, another comes, and another, and another. And suffice it to say, as soon as Margaret Ogola closed the novel, readers were on her. We want to know what became of Alicia. We want to know what became of Becky's children. So Margaret Ogola was, tempted to do another novel. And indeed, she went ahead and did another novel. She did I Swear by Apollo as a sequel to The River and the Source, because her readers were left wondering, but what happened? We want to know what became of these grandchildren of this great woman. Yeah? Because her lineage is full of, great women. We want to see the greatness explored to the end. So various worlds are projected in contemporary fiction, each with its unique lens, layers, and powers. Like if you look at the river and the source, the power that was initially in the hands of the menfolk is in the hands of the women. Yeah, they're the ones towering above the male folk. Why do we say that? The docket of proposing to a woman, for instance, was a man's. But in the river and the source, we see Wandia proposing to her husband. She tells the husband, but when are you visiting my people? My people are asking, when are you coming? Now we have been friends for too long. Now we should move to the next level. So that presents us with strangeness as readers. Hey, you mean modern women propose to the male folk? Yeah? And before we are done with that, we see Becky marrying a white man. And more strangeness present in that particular novel. Yeah? Now these world views can best be reflected in the spaces created in the literary world. Yeah? And that kind of space hosts many, many incommensurable episodes. There are times you read a book and it takes you to a level that you say, no, let me start from the back and see what happens to this particular character. And then as you read a little, you say, no, I think I want to start from the beginning again. I want to find out, but how did this character come in here? So that is exactly what the world presents like. Because even if we look at the gadgets that we use, we look at the ordinary pens, we look at the ordinary books that we read, we have an amalgamation, yeah? People coming together to make something. We look at the world of fonts. The accessories of a particular font, you will realize a part of it came from Korea, a part of it from Japan, a part of it from another part of the country, so that by the time it is assembled, many have contributed into the making of that particular font or machine for that matter. And that exactly is what the literary world is presented with. It is an amalgamation of theoretical concerns coming together. Yeah? Like Sukizo Wana presents to us a period just after apartheid, just after the separate existence in South Africa. We see that very clearly in Sukizo Wana's The Madams. And our friend Lorraine cannot imagine that, you mean Thandi is employing a white house girl in the name of Marita. For Lorraine, that is spite on her culture. How can an African woman put a white house girl in the employ when it has never happened? So for Lorraine, she takes it personally that Thandi must be getting at her. She would rather she, as Lorraine, employed an African and not the other way around. But it's like the writer is telling us, this is a free South Africa. And Marita, for that matter, is very happy in the employ of an African woman, although she's a white girl. But when she has an opportunity to tell her story, she says that she murdered her husband, she killed her husband, domestic violence, and she was put in. But later she was released because her case was reduced to manslaughter. She was annoyed beyond control when she killed her husband. And we are taken aback as readers that we mean people can murder and they talk openly about the murders they have committed, like Marita does. But that's what is happening in society. Yeah? We look at not so far familiar incidences and we're able to recount and say, you mean that governor murdered somebody, but he's free. He is back on his seat, like he didn't do anything. So what this ontological pluralism confronts us with is an amalgamation of different happenings from different parts of the world coming together. Yeah? And, as we are discussing this ontological pluralism, we look at several pluralisms in the Bible because we look to the Bible for inspiration. It's a revered book. We look at the story of how Cain murdered Abel out of sibling rivalry. And when we look at Sukizo Wanas, the madams, we see an aspect of sibling rivalry. Yeah. And then we look at another story in the Bible. That is Jacob stealing Esau's birthright. And when we look at other texts, we see similarities. That what was actually not apportioned somebody is what that person gets. We move on to who? Jacob and Jethro. Then we realize that Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, and he was willing to work for 7 years for his prospective father-in-law so that he would be able to marry Rachel. But when he's given a woman finally on their wedding day, the father-in-law gives him Leah and not Rachel. And he's so disappointed. But we're saying history is repeating itself because he also once cheated Esau out of his birthright. And now it's like history is repeating itself. It's being paid back on Jacob. Yeah. So we look at literary texts and we realize that, hey, they do the same. But then this Leah that Jacob despised carried the blessings. How many children did Leah get? How many did the beloved Rachel get? Yeah. So we look at all these and we realize that, hey, literature does not just borrow from history. Literature borrows heavily from religion. But above everything else, literature looks at the society. It mirrors the society. We look at the stories in the Bible and we realize, hey, they are a replication of who we are. We look at literary texts and we realize that these rivalries that are discussed are here with us. We look at Thandi making an attempt to avenge on her husband Mandla, because Mandla has gone back to have a relationship with his childhood girlfriend Norma. And Thandi says, you're doing that to me, I'm going to revenge. She does not say it verbally, but she does it in her acts. She actually does revenge on her husband by philandering with a stranger somewhere in one of the cities of South Africa. You say to me, this is here with us, this is happening. Yeah. Even here at City Campus, we talk about lesbians, we talk about gays. And before we are done discussing these strange happenings, Sukizo Wana presents us with these characters in her novel, Men of the South. And men of the South do very, very strange things. So in conclusion, I want to say that as we look at postmodernist theories of literature, we want to have broad minds. And we want to say that these tenets of theories of postmodernism should prick our conscience so that we also come up with a short story to begin with, come up with a poem, come up with something. Let this skill that you have learned in this particular lecture not go to waste. Use it to do a poem. Use it to start a story. You can tell us the story of your life so that we will use any one of these postmodernist theories we have studied to analyze it. Thank you very much for the patient hearing and wish you all the best in the forthcoming exams. I want to say that this time round, we are going to present with strangeness in the exams. We're going to meet multiple choice questions. And it is not going to be the long essays as has been in the past. This time, we're going to have ontological pluralism. We're going to have short essays. We're going to ask you to list down. We're going to ask you to explain in a few words. Yeah? We have gone ontological pluralist. Thank you and bye-bye.